This is for you. All right. I'm gonna do this though.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Hello, friends. My name is Carter. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Carter.
I am just like everybody else here. My sobriety date is October 19th, 2014. I got sober, I think, 1 week before I turned 16. When I was in treatment in Arizona shortly after getting back from running away. I first off, to jump back, I just want to thank Galen for speaking, and it was awesome to hear what you had to say, and at the same time how you were saying it. And I just remember being 17 in like somewhat early recovery, but like finding your footing, and it was just awesome. And I think so purposeful that you happen to be this person who showed up here. That was a wonderful, wonderful speech. So thanks. It's funny. Thanks for that introduction. I have always felt like this different person, separate from everybody else, which I think is a very common alcoholic thing to feel. And I, at different points in my life, have tried to distance myself from people in different ways. And a big part of my story is this general fear of people. And we hear about it a little bit in the 9th Step Promises, saying that that's going to go away. For me, I've been afraid of people like forever, I feel like. And I don't really know why. Like, I just have always wanted other people's approval, and I've felt pushed away and felt like I wasn't getting something I wanted. To be noticed, to be whatever, I don't know. I felt, I guess, I wanted this thing. I wanted to be seen. And I could never say like what the real root of alcoholism is. People say it's a disease, and some people say they drank later in life and developed alcoholism, and like, who fucking knows. I go with the disease thing because I like it. But yeah, I just know I had like all these reasons why I was discontent early on in life, like feeling different from people and wanting affirmation of some kind, or wanting to feel like I was special and noticed and blah blah blah. At this point in my life, I am not doing it right now, but I do dress kind of crazy a lot of the time and wear funky outfits, to challenge that as part of, this might sound crazy, but part of my spiritual practice. Like, when I'm doing something now with the recovery that I have under my belt, I get to do my like 10th step type process and think about how uncomfortable I might be putting something on my body, or like looking at this thing and thinking like, oh fuck, like I couldn't pull that off or whatever. And as soon as I have that thought, I know, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. That is a way my higher power talks to me. And I get to challenge myself and remember that I'm never a solid creation. I'm never fully like built, and I'm always, I hope I always remain teachable. Because that would be really fucking shitty if I got to a point in my life where I felt like I knew everything. To get into my story, I don't like talking about stories as much, because I think like we all have whatever story we have, and we all end up here, and we all have felt a certain amount of pain, um, unmanageability, powerlessness, and we already know that. So like, what's the point of me telling you exactly what happened? To a degree, I also do really love. So I didn't hear my story in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous until I had 7 years sober at a speaker meeting in Los Angeles, and that was a crazy cool experience for me. So I guess maybe I kind of take that back. Um, I do like to focus on similarities now, but yeah, it took me such a long time. I started coming around, and I would hear people say all the time, like, I sat down in Alcoholics Anonymous and I heard my story and I knew that I was one of you guys. And that was not my story. Like I felt discontent. I felt separate. I came to AA through the courts when I was 14. And I was court ordered to go to Ryther in Northeast Seattle after a burglary 2 charge, the night of my little brother's birthday. And I had broken into my middle school with some friends. Um, I was on probation for about a year and failed every single drug test. I ended up kind of feeding up the courts with all this bullshit, and they were like, we're not having it anymore. You're either going to go to juvie or you're going to go to rehab. And I was like, whoa, what? Are you kidding me? Let's go to rehab all the way. So, 30 days, that's it. We're good. And then we can keep going. And I went to Ryther and I snuck in weed and cigarettes and a lighter in the inner lining of my suitcase. And I got kicked out after 14 days, and they called the cops on me. And then I had 10 days at home where I was just not really at home. I was like out and about doing whatever mind altering substances I was doing, whatever I wanted, and staying away from home, staying at this apartment in Lake City. And yeah, so my parents felt so hopeless, and I have awesome parents who saw that I had a problem and wanted to help me. Also felt powerless. They didn't know what to do, and after that 10-day period of being home, my mom picked me up from this ferry. I was on my way back to Seattle from Vashon Island, and she gives me a coffee, and I was hesitant to drink this coffee because I just had fucked up trust issues, and I was like, Mom, I'm not gonna drink this fucking coffee. I don't, whatever. And she took a little baby sip to prove to me that it was an okay coffee to drink, and then I drank her coffee, and she dropped me off at my friend's house, and I had breakfast at my friend's house. Super weird day. Like I wouldn't hang out with these people and do these like normal kid things. But I was this one day. And after breakfast, my dad showed up at my friend Lily's house with my uncle and 2 family friends. And by that point, this coffee that my mom had given me had kicked in. There was crushed up Xanax in it. And I wasn't a Xanax user, so it had its proper effect. And I was sedated, and they put me in a car and drove me across state lines because at that time it was you had to consent to going to treatment in Washington State if you were over the age of 13. So, and I wasn't going to consent. That had been proven. I had tried to kill myself, and they had recommended psychological treatment, and I was like, "Fuck you guys, I'm not going." And they couldn't make me for some reason, due to the law in this state. And that might be different now, but yeah, so they transported me over state lines to Oregon. I went to Northwest Behavioral Health Services in Gladstone. And I remember being handcuffed to my dad with my uncle's leather sex handcuffs in this like hotel parking lot. Um, it sounds comical, but I just remember like being handcuffed to my dad, like this person who I was supposed to be close with. Like, what the fuck? Like, you fucking betrayed me. But I was like this monster, like this little fucking monster child. I wasn't, I'm an alcoholic, and I got admitted to this place and I stayed for 29 days. And at the end of that, I was determined I was either going to run away from that place or kill myself when I found out that I was going to get transported to another treatment center, Second Nature Blue Ridge, in Gladstone. No, Gladstone, Clayton, Georgia, Blue Ridge Mountains. And these Marine guys showed up at my 29th day and picked me up and brought me to Atlanta, and then got a rental car and drove me to intake and Clayton. And I spent 9 weeks in treatment, wilderness treatment in Georgia, with a backpack, hiking around, blindfolded, stripped naked, thrown in the back of a truck and driven out to the middle of the woods. And I am so grateful for all of it. I do want to clarify that part. Right. Yeah, so I made it to water phase, which was an extra phase in the level system in that treatment center, and I didn't need to have made it to that phase. It was like just fire, I think earth and then fire, and then you can leave. But I got to this extra phase, and I was like, I'm the shit. I'm like really surpassing all these blah blah blah, and I was ready to leave. And I found out that my parents were not going to take me out. At that point, after I finished Second Nature, back to the court stuff, my charges were dropped. I got a deferred disposition. So courts were out of it. And then now, like, my parents just wanted to keep me in treatment. They were on a roll. And, and, in wilderness rehab, we each got our own individual bottle of hand sanitizer with ethyl alcohol in it. And I remember going on these hikes and dumping this hand sanitizer in my Nalgene, and we had this Gatorade powder. It was like a special treat. We could put Gatorade powder in our water bottles. And I remember mixing the Gatorade powder and the hand sanitizer, and it was just like this numbing, weird feeling, but it still got you drunk. It was ethyl alcohol in that thing. And then that got shut down. I don't know how they didn't know that this hand sanitizer had ethyl alcohol, and they just gave each kid in there their own bottle of this stuff, like a new one whenever they wanted, which is crazy. Anyways, so I find out that I'm going to this place called Imbalance Ranch Academy in between Tombstone, Benson, Sierra Vista, and Huachuca City, Arizona. Like in the middle of these 4 towns, middle of the desert. And I tried to play it cool. I thought that if I just like held my shit together, that maybe my parents would pull me out of there and then I could run away and, do whatever I wanted to do, travel the country and just get super fucked up all the time. And that didn't happen. They stuck to their plan. I finished treatment in wilderness and I got transported by my family this time to Arizona, flew into Tucson, and I just immediately reset. I had kind of gotten to this point in wilderness where I was like, I felt I had high horses, or I was on my high horse, whatever, and I felt like I had like done all this stuff and I had recovered or whatever. I had done their program and I was done, ready to leave now. And then I was just back to square one at a place with a 10-month minimum stay. And I just felt like defeated but I wasn't done. And I found every weird ass way you could get high in that place. Like we would do space monkeys, and if you guys know the hyperventilating, and then you don't even need to put something in your body; you just like make yourself crazy dizzy. And, and Benadryl and like people's cheeked meds from the nurse and whatever. And I ran away from that treatment center twice. Once on a meeting trip to Benson, Arizona on a Friday night, and I think Friday. Um, yeah, and I ran around in the middle of the night. Like I remember laying in. I ran with a friend, and we were laying down in this ravine, looking up, and we saw the fucking border patrol headlights going over the top of this ravine, and we're just like right over our noses, listening to All Along the Watchtower on his iPod that he got from that treatment center, and it was just like this. Whoa, where am I? How's that for a war story? Yeah, so then we walked around in the desert for however many hours, and then I think eventually decided to turn ourselves in because it was insane. We were just walking on I-10 towards Tucson, like 40 something miles away, and they're like, "This is not happening." Anyways, so I to skip a bunch because I know I want to get sober here. I I ran away again. When after I had been at that treatment center for 11 months, I had not made the minimum. I had refused programming up until that point. Sat still and not done anything. So I wasn't moving towards completing whatever treatment stuff I needed to complete for graduation. So 11 months came. I was still at square one of this treatment center. Had 10 more months to go whenever I was ready to start putting in the work. Um, and I ran away again on a meeting trip to Tucson. I had stolen a letter. There was this service trip they were going to do in Peru, and we got to write letters, and we got these envelopes with stamps on them to send to family. And I stole one of the letters with the stamps on it and wrote my parents' names and their address on there, and a letter to them saying, "Hey guys, I just ran away from this treatment and from this meeting in Tucson, and I'm I'm never going to see you again," and whatever else I said on there. And I did. I rubber banded all these letters to my thighs and had my iPod mini or whatever and ran away at this meeting in Tucson with two friends. One I still know today, which is crazy. That's like, whoa, treatment, you don't get that. Anyways, yeah, so we get to this meeting, walk inside. It's the Big Apple in Tucson, if anybody knows. And we go all the way through and out the other side and run just as fast as we can, hop fences, and we're finally out. And I experienced this feeling of freedom, and a really crazy thing happened that night. I remember just I don't know exactly what it was. We eventually found some substances to use, um, and I traded my iPod for this little bag of crystal meth. This dude we just ran into and asked for a cigarette, and he had that instead. So I gave him this iPod that I got from my friend Hannah. It was a really sweet kind of item, you know. To me, it was special because I got it for my birthday and I was in treatment at the time. And just in the blink of an eye, here you go, take it, give me that stuff. And that was 2.5 hours after we had ran away. To just kind of show how fast that was for me, without any intention of getting fucked up when I left this place. All I wanted was to be free, like to feel free, go where I wanted to go, and not be watched or walkie-talkie to the bathroom. And I felt some freedom. I felt some kind of freedom, like I mentioned. And at the same time, I felt like I didn't have something. And I looked up to the sky and I prayed for the first time in my, I guess, like somewhat recent memory. That was a crazy long time ago, but first time I remember praying to hope. And I said, hope, please let whatever is supposed to happen happen. Which is insane because I had all these plans and I wanted to control everything at that time in my life. That was just this one weird, like little, you could say, I guess, moment of clarity. But I just thought for the first time that I might not know what's best for me. And we stayed out. We were snorting crystal meth off a 24-hour AA chip for 16 hours, walking around Tucson. Bunch of crazy, weird interactions with people, characters around the city that I could go on for hours about. But to cut to the chase, because I do want to get sober, we got caught. We were waiting for a ride to San Francisco from my friend Sam's aunt, and turns out she wasn't trying to help us out. She was just gonna tell all the cops where we were, and we're waiting in this hedge behind, like a block back and over from the library. We're waiting in the hedge. Yes. And this dude, Danny, pokes his head into the bush and looks at us and he says, "Hey guys, I'm Danny. I'm from Imbalance." And we're like, what the fuck? Like, we were so close. Like, this person has this car and they're almost here and blah, blah, blah. And we're yelling at this guy. Eventually he gets out of the way and we think we're just going to jet past him. And there's this fucking huge circle of people around this bush. Cops and Southwest child transporters and employees from the ranch, our section of the treatment center, and the transitional living, and kids who went to the transitional living, just like this whole circle of people. And we were like, fuck, like it's done. Like it's over. And we each got put in the back of our own cop car and we just kind of hung out and didn't know what was going to happen. There's this dude Lorenzo, this child transporter Lorenzo, that was kind of infamous amongst treatment kids. Like you don't want to meet that guy. He's fucking bad. And he was there. And that was like, what the? So anyways, we end up getting transported back to the ranch. And the initial plan was to ship us off to different treatment centers to separate the three of us. I was going to go to Coral Reef Academy in Samoa, where even if you turn the age of consent, you can't leave because you're an illegal immigrant. And you have to finish the treatment program, which is a crazy, crazy model. But they ended up keeping us all there. I was on isolation for about a week, and this treatment center was a 12-step based treatment center. You had to finish the 12 steps before you leave. And I think they did a pretty good job of like actually having you work, maybe aside from the genuine willingness that you need, like when you're not in treatment, like if you're just doing it for yourself. But aside from that, it's pretty solid. You just like get a staff member who is an alcoholic to be your sponsor. eventually for me, I asked another kid who was there to be my sponsor because I had an authority problem. But that worked for me. That was fucking awesome. I don't think people did that a lot, but I just got off isolation. I was withdrawing. If so, I mean, we did that for one night, whatever. But yeah, and I was out on the basketball court with a friend, and we were talking about how much we hated our lives, how much we hated our parents, and how much we hated everything and wanted to die, and blah blah blah. And I just had this moment where I was like, huh. I just keep saying this like same story over and over again about how I hate everything and everyone. And maybe I could not do that. And yeah, I walked back to my room after this conversation and I just had that moment of clarity. I would call that one a moment of clarity, where I realized I was just doing that whole thing to myself. I was like regurgitating the same story about how like I'm the victim and everybody's out to fucking get me and whatever. And yeah, so I'm walking back to my room from the basketball court and I have this moment and then I sit down in my room and open up this notebook with a outline fourth step in it and just start writing. And that was it for me. From that point on, I had, well, minus maybe a few minor instances, um, maybe severe at times, kind of emotional instances, but I have had the intention to remain sober since, for the most part. And I stayed at that treatment center for another 8 months after that point and got on my shit and I did the work and I graduated. And my whole attitude changed. Like I suddenly wasn't thinking about what other kids at this treatment center were thinking of me and if they would think I was like stupid or lame for doing the right thing. Because that was a huge fear of mine, like not being liked because I'm doing the right thing. It's not cool or whatever. Um, and that was just gone. You know, I was just doing what I felt like I should do, doing what I knew was right, and not like, I don't know, trusting my higher power. I think is probably the simplest way to put that. I got out of treatment and I went to the recovery high school on top of Queen Anne. Seth W. is the counselor there, and I graduated in the year 2017. I picked up a meeting at Cherry Fellowship Hall called The Jig Is Up, and that was kind of like beaten to the ground. Nobody was going, and I ended up secretarying this meeting for 7 years, which is crazy, very like unstructured, but thank God for that. I just was able to consistently go to this meeting and I found purpose in life and showing up for other people and just doing like the opposite of what I did um, before I got sober when I was in active alcoholism, active addiction. I think those two things are the same, by the way. And fuck, I would keep going, you know, but one more minute. What can I say? You know, being young in recovery, having gotten sober when I was 15, almost 16, I I've had I've had an interesting time with people telling me that they wish that they got it when I got it, or like I'm so fucking lucky for like whatever reason. And whenever I hear stuff like that, it's like you don't fucking know the half of it. And it's crazy. Like I don't know. And I do my best to try to not want anybody else's life but my own. Because I'm grateful for all of the experience that I have. And a lot of it is painful, and a lot of it can feed into that feeling of separation, like all these like literal different things that make my life stand apart from other people's. Not having a traditional high school experience or like whatever. But I didn't want that shit to begin with. If I strip away all these like little voices in my head, like I didn't want to be a normal kid. I didn't set myself up for that. So for me to be like, I was fucked over and I didn't have this normal blah 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 is like bullshit. Like you didn't want that, and and I know today that my story and everything that I have been through can be this like beacon of hope for the still suffering alcoholic, and not to like toot my own horn and be like, look, I've made, but like it's just a really beautiful thing to be able to talk about my worst moments and have somebody hear that and see light in it. Gives me hope when I am having a really horrible time. I think the only time I'm ever going to drink or use or whatever is when I want to. I don't think anything can happen that's going to make me, no matter who fucking dies or who breaks up with me or who blah, blah, blah. I've been hit by a car, broke 14 bones in my fucking body, cracked my skull open, almost died in the hospital, 7th floor in Harborview when I had 4 years sober. I woke up in the hospital and I said, don't give me narcotics. And I am proud of that. I say it like I'm proud of it, and I am proud of that. They had already given me narcotics. It's the thought that counts. And I got off of them as soon as I could. So, anyways, I guess, yeah, that is all for me. I would keep going. I would love to go further into the recovery portion of that, but I'll leave it there. Thank you guys. I am further.